I found out that my father is in Patliputra.
How did you get to know about
Acharya
it?
Chanakya told me. But he is not telling me who.
They killed your grandfather, and they set your hut on fire.
I've learned how to please the authority in order to use the power in my favor.
Acharya Chanakya cannot hide the truth in front of Emperor Bindusar.
Do you know who my father is?
Yes.
I must tell the truth to His Highness.
Well, good afternoon there. My name is Jackie Wambiru, and our sign language interpreter this afternoon is Byron Abule. It is indeed a day when a new general sits on the realm of the country's defense forces. Now, that is after ongoing Chief of Defense Forces, General Samson Mwathehe, handed over to the incoming General Robert Kiboshi. Well, I do hope you're having a lovely day. Now let's take a look at news making headlines across the country and beyond. Now, leaders across Europe are marking the 75th anniversary of victory in Europe, a day signifying the end of World War II. The celebrations are being observed when much of the continent remains under lockdown due to coronavirus.
We'll be marking V-Day of Victory in Europe Day to mark the day towards the end of World War II, when fighting against Nazi Germany in Europe came to an end. Closed ceremonies are also being held by leaders of France and Germany, Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel. Other events are also being held, but large public gatherings remain forbidden. The development coming as Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison unveiled the National Cabinet's three-stage plan to reopen Australia economically and recreationally from COVID-19 lockdown. Although all states and territories across the country will share the same path back to the semblance of normalcy, each jurisdiction will determine its own pace. Today, Hong Kong is beginning to ease lockdown measures after 2 more weeks of reporting no new COVID-19 infections. The measures will see fitness centers, beauty salons, cinemas and some schools reopen, with large groups allowed to gather. However, those who have been involved in anti-government demonstration say the pandemic measures have been used to clamp down their protest. Some small demonstrations, including singing protests in shopping malls, as restriction eased. The Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which coordinates pandemic responses across the continent, says there's a large gap in testing between countries. According to the organization, some of the Africa's smaller nations have achieved significantly better rates of testing than their larger neighborhoods. Mauritius and Djibouti, for example, have both achieved higher rates of testing per capita. Ghana has also been praised for its level of testing, which its government says will help contain the spread of the virus once the lockdown is lifted. And the World Health Organization has warned that coronavirus could kill up to 190,000 people in Africa in the first year if the control measures fail to work. WHO says transmission of the virus in the continent has been slower but could result to a longer outbreak, overwhelming the available medical capacity in the continent. Meanwhile, conservation experts are warning that a wildlife catastrophe is unfolding in Africa. The experts say closure of safari tourism due to coronavirus pandemic is decimating the industry and leading to an increase in poaching. The Africa tourism industry is worth almost $30 billion a year and employs almost 4 million people.
And away from that, over 3,000 girls and women living in rural areas in Samburu County are set to benefit from sanitary towels courtesy of the county government and AMREF Africa. Under the program, the women will also be sensitized on sexual reproductive health.
It is relief for over 3,000 women and girls from rural areas in Samburu County following a partnership between the county government and AMREF to supply them with sanitary towels. Accessing sanitary towels for girls in this area has proven to be an uphill task over time, with challenges ranging from lack of finances to the distance they have to cover to access the markets.
This is not a women affair, but it is with us, because if we don't educate our young boys about issues of menstrual hygiene, that is where victimization comes in.
Silvana Lesuda, founder and head of NEST, a local community-based organization dealing with issues affecting young women, says it has been a challenge for women living in the country's rural areas to access the sanitary towels.
The money to buy the sanitary towels also has a problem. And you see, in Samburu is actually kind of sensitive culture. So even if young girls cannot send their brothers or fathers to buy them pads when they are going to market.
Samburu County Executive Committee member in charge of Gender, Culture and Social Services, Irene Leluata, saying that with the current limited movement as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, more women have been affected. Nancy Okwari, Channel 1 News.
And still on COVID-19, the outbreak of COVID-19 has presented a host of challenges, especially to persons with special needs. But how do you ensure that hearing impaired children are not facing further barriers, especially with closure of schools, and that their families access information and resources to support their special needs?
So for children with special needs who are deaf, it's very important that, one, for you as the caregiver, that you're being able to communicate that information that they are seeing on the TV that could be frightening to them, in whether it's a child who uses a hearing aid, or a child who needs to be signed for, that you sign and communicate what's going on with COVID-19. And when you go to the hospital, it's important that you explain to the healthcare provider that your child is hearing impaired, and that way the healthcare provider is able to communicate in a way that whether it's someone who already knows how to sign, where we need an interpreter, that the child can be explained for what's happening to their body, as for example, if blood is being taken or they're getting swabs at the back of their noses. It's important that that information is relayed to the child prior to you touching the individual. So that information the parent has to communicate to the healthcare giver so they understand what's the method of communication for that child who is being attended to in the hospital.
Now, it was a reprieve for 232 Kenyans who jetted back into the country Thursday evening after months of being stranded in India due to the suspension of flights as a mitigation exercise against the spread of COVID-19. While receiving the passengers who were on board a special flight from Mumbai, Foreign Affairs Chief Administrative Secretary Babu Namwamba said the government will continue partnering with the national carrier to provide flights that will bring back home Kenyans who are stranded across different parts of the world.
With the coronavirus pandemic wreaking havoc across the globe, many Kenyans, like citizens from other countries, have been stranded in different parts of the world after different governments suspended flights as a mitigation measure against the spread of COVID-19. It was relief for Kenyans, however, after the government, in partnership with the national carrier Kenya Airways, mounted several humanitarian flights to bring back home Kenyans who are stranded across different parts of the world. Speaking while receiving passengers who are on board a special flight from Mumbai, which landed at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport Thursday night, Foreign Affairs Chief Administrative Secretary Babu Namwamba lauded the partnership, saying it will avert the agony of many Kenyans stranded abroad.
It is really a major achievement, the collaboration we are having right now, that the lockdown of the airspace across the world notwithstanding, we are working well with Kenya Airways. I want really to commend Mr. Alan Klavuka, the head of Kenya Airways at the moment, for the fantastic collaboration we are having.
Lata Mahajan is among the 232 passengers who were stranded in 6 cities in India before they boarded the much-awaited special flight KQ205 from Mumbai to Nairobi. She is happy to be home.
I'm a Kenyan citizen and I visited India to see my father. And while my return journey, I just found that we are on lockdown and our flights were cancelled. So it was a bit sad for us to stay there, leaving our home.
Yes, I was discharged before COVID. And we also, back in India, there was a lockdown. So we couldn't go anywhere because the flights were not coming in.
You can imagine how large India is, from Delhi to Bangalore to Hyderabad to Mumbai, really long distances, some measuring over 2,000 kilometers. But we've been able to bring all of them together.
It's a special group. There are patients who had gone to India for treatment, and many of them have gone through intensive medical processes, and they are therefore a delicate lot. So we focused on them because we wanted to bring them back home safely, to help them come back, and so that they know that we care for them as fellow citizens.
Kenya Airways Group Managing Director and CEO Alan Kilavuka has said that the national carrier is making the flights to evacuate many Kenyans who had travelled to India for medical reasons. Kilavuka saying that the Kenya Airways has also put up a raft of measures to ensure the safety of all passengers on board, which include all passengers are required to undergo a COVID-19 screening and produce their clearance certificate before boarding. The measures also include sanitization of all aircraft, providing appropriate PPEs to support passenger handling, practicing no-touch techniques when administering all services related to passengers, which include baggage, and strict adherence to the point of entry protocols upon arrival to the various destinations. For Channel 1 News, I'm Safin Acheng Oma.
Well, that report by Safina Chingoma brings us to our first break here on Channel 1 Lunchtime News. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Virusi vya korona vinazidi kuenea haraka kote ulimwenguni, na kwa sasa hakuna dawa au chanjo ya kuzuia. Husambaa wakati vijitone kutoka kwa mtu aliyeambukizwa vinaporuka akiongea, kukohoa au kupiga chafya. Vijitone hivi hutua kwenye sehemu ambazo mikono hushika na huwezi kuviona, lakini hata kama huvioni haimaanishi kuwa hakuna, na unaweza kuambukizwa unapogusa uso wako, pua, mdomo au macho. Ili kusaidia kuzuia kuenea kwa virusi hivi, sote tunahitajika kufanya mambo matano. 1. Fuata hatua hizi: kuosha mikono yako mara kwa mara na sabuni na maji kwa angalau sekunde 40. 2. Funika mdomo wako na kiwiko wakati wote unapokohoa au kupiga chafya. 3. Usishike uso wako. 4. Epuka sehemu zenye watu wengi. Weka umbali salama baina yako na wenzako. 5. Kaa nyumbani ukiweza, hasa ikiwa una dalili zozote za ugonjwa. Kwa maelezo zaidi tembelea www.who.int.
I heard that you settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best of you too. Don't forget me, I think I remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead. Sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts.
Welcome back. Now let's continue with our coverage where an Nakuru-based automotive enterprise has embarked on designing ventilator components in the rush to fast-track production of the much-needed mechanical intensive care respirators in the country amid an unsettling spike in coronavirus disease cases. The components are designed to enable efficient use by medical practitioners under the mounting strain occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic.
How it is designed?
Mustimoto Automotive Company Director of Commercial Services Ashid Shah says the company, in collaboration with local and foreign biomedical engineers, is working on mechanical components for the equipment to supply to local manufacturers for mass production in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. The factory now seeks to set a stage for production of components enough to help ramp up production of 100 a day and 500 ventilators a week in a bid to bridge an existing shortfall running into tens of thousands.
But we can probably manufacture locally and then move our products to the rest of the countries. And I mean, once we get our CAP certification for the ventilators, we would be looking for a lot of orders from other counties, from other health organizations, from the region, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Zambia, Mozambique. We would actually be looking for a lot of inquiries and supplying orders for the...
In Mandera, the Ministry of Health has begun a massive COVID-19 testing targeting 400 residents. Governor Ali Roba, who spearheaded the campaign, urged residents to embrace the exercise as it will help curb further infections. The governor saying there was need for testing to ascertain the real number of infected persons in the region. Roba, who was first to be tested, confirmed all county workers and his household will go through the test before rolling it out to the rest of the residents. In the meantime, Ongata Rongai Ololesa Water and Sewage Company in Kajiado County has adopted their employees' needy families to cushion them during the COVID-19 pandemic period. The company has now adopted 22 families of their needy employees to cushion them from the adverse effects of COVID-19.
Recently, through partnership with Water, we were able to distribute 21 tanks of 1,000 liters to hotspots, that is the market, the bus parks, and public spaces. Through the county government, we are also expecting another 11 tanks of 5,000 liters each, and this will play a much bigger role. What is important to know is that all these connections we are not charging, and this is water going to the community to ensure that people are clean, people wash their hands, and that is what this company can do as a participation towards the combating the COVID-19 impact.
Elsewhere, the Murang'a County Assembly has passed a motion to distribute food from all early childhood development centers to needy families during the COVID-19 period. Mbiri, member of County Assembly Duncan Muturi, while tabling the motion, said that most of foodstuffs that had been purchased in January could end up getting spoiled in the learning institutions. And the Kiambu County Member of Parliament Jude Njomo has launched a hotline number that will be used to reach out for free counseling during COVID-19 pandemic. Through the Jude Njomo Foundation in collaboration with Kenya Institute of Business and Counseling Studies, the legislature has embarked on offering free mental health psychosocial support services during COVID-19 period. Njomo says the initiative was born out of rising concern over increased cases of domestic and gender-based violence in recent days.
So kuna mambo mingi sana. Kuna wazee walikuwa jioni wakienda nyumbani, anapitia pahali fulani, anakunywa moja, alafu anaenda nyumbani. Saa hii haendi. So akienda nyumbani anasikia kama mwili haiko sawa sawa. Hajazoea kukaa nyumbani kutoka saa moja jioni. Sasa analazimishwa kukaa kwa nyumba. Na tunaona hata kama kulikuwa shida kidogo ya nyumba, inaenda inapanuka, inakuwa kitu kubwa, tunakuwa na fujo kwa nyumba, watu wanachapana. Kumekuwa na shida nyingi za mawazo katika nyumba.
The services will be extended to frontline officers working in health centers. Beatrice Gatonyangetich, Channel 1 News.
Now, authorities in Wajir have heightened surveillance across the border points following an increase in imported coronavirus cases, especially from neighboring Somalia. The county government is advising area residents against accommodating individuals coming from Somalia as well as neighboring counties and to report the presence of strangers to authorities for swift action. Currently, 4 people are in quarantine after they were intercepted entering the county from Somalia through Burhache El-Wake border point.
Counties across the country are on high alert, especially at border points, following a surging number of people attempting to sneak in from neighboring countries. Wajir County, which has now 9 coronavirus cases, has heightened surveillance at entry points, screening and putting people into quarantine to contain the spread of COVID-19. Further, residents are being cautioned against accommodating people who may pose a risk to them and their families.
Expose that person, expose that visitor, let him be picked by the health team, let him be tested, let him be quarantined so that he does not mix with the rest of the innocent people.
The county executive in charge of health, Ismail Isaac, saying that more quarantine facilities have been put up at the border points and that 4 persons are currently being isolated after they were intercepted trying to sneak into the county from Somalia. Wajir County Commissioner Jacob Narengo calling on residents to report such incidences to authorities for action.
Tuhakikishe kwamba tuko rada, tuko macho na kuripot hao walimu wa dini ambao walikuwa double Somalia in general na livestock traders. Jini livestock traders ama ni Al-Shabaab ndio wanatoroka, I don't know, but you should be able to tell us.
Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
Now, on a separate matter, thousands of families have been forced to flee their homes following several days of heavy rains and flooding. At least 17,000 people were left homeless after Tana River burst its banks, spilling its waters into nearby villages, leaving them inundated and inaccessible. To minimize the effects of these rains, the government is relocating Kenyans in flood-prone areas amid warning from the weatherman that the rains will continue pounding most parts in the coming days.
5 people are said to have drowned in various parts of Embu County as the heavy rains forced nearby rivers to break banks. Property worth millions of shillings and farms and the crops have also been destroyed.
Sasa kunanyesha, dam zote zimejaa, kuna landslides ziko nyingi. Bahati mbaya hivi sasa tumepoteza watu 4 katika Embu, in fact ni 5. Kwa sababu ya mambo ya floods.
As various parts of the country continue to experience heavy downpour, a humanitarian crisis is looming in Tana River County, where thousands of people have been displaced. In this region, hundreds of acres of farmland have remained flooded while crops have been destroyed. This obtaining situation a result of Tana River bursting its banks, submerging nearby villages. Those affected have been forced to seek refuge in 23 camps spread across the county, even as Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Omalo disclosed efforts to aid families affected.
We have lost 194 lives. So we are here to ask you as the leaders, please evacuate our people because the water levels of River Tana are rising. More people are going to be displaced. More property will be lost. And we do not wish to hear of loss of life in this part of the country.
In Mosocho, Kisii County, residents are counting losses after experiencing heavy downpour that has submerged their houses, sweeping away their household items. The residents blaming their plight on the newly constructed Kisii-Kisumu highway, alleging a shoddy job by project engineers.
Sasa mahindi yote iko hapo ndani. Unga ya uchi iko hapo ndani, hata sahani hata sufuria sina. Hasa tunakaa hapa kwa mavaranda tu ndio tunaishi, hatuna chochote.
Tangu tarehe 1 watu wamekuwa wamelala nje. Maji iliende kajazika kabisa, ikafunga kila kitu. Mambo ya choo ikafungwa, mambo ya vizima ikafungwa, chakula yote ilikuwa kwa manyumba ikafungwa na hii maji.
In Kiambu County, the government has put in place measures to mitigate the flooding situation. County diesel-powered pumps were used in Kabuku and Rironi to pump away water that had invaded the residential areas.
Katika Kiambu kaunti yote, mtu yeyote ambaye anajenga damu ni lazima apewe authority, na tutaongea na serikali kuu kwa sababu hata wao wanapeana authority ili tuhakikishe kwamba hatutahatarisha maisha ya watu.
In Laikipia, residents of Umande Ward are calling on the government to rebuild a bridge that they used to access trading centers after it was swept away by raging waters. The Mugumo Bridge was swept away after Nyarigino River broke its banks following heavy rains that have been pounding areas around Mount Kenya Forest.
Furika vyenye hatujaiona ilikuwa inapitia juu ya hii daraja na hii maji ikabeba hata huko mnaona hii ni tumelima hapa boga. Nursery bed ilikuwa hapa ya seedling ya miti hapa mishe zote zimeenda. Tuko na hasara kubwa sana ile tunahesabu hapa.
Vitu nyingi sasa huku zimeenda na maji, mbuzi zetu, ng'ombe zetu, nyumba ile tunakuanga kwa hii mradi wa kupanda mamiti yote imeenda na
Now let's shift gears where an elderly couple was found murdered in cold blood in their home in Limuru on Wednesday night. The gruesome executions coming as police launched investigations to determine the motive amid claims that the killings are linked to a long-drawn land tussle. Sarafina Robi gives us the details.
Police have launched investigations into the murder of a 76-year-old man and a 70-year-old wife who were murdered on Wednesday night in Limuru. Amid outcry from members of the public, Area Chief Michael Kang'ethe pleaded for ample time to conduct extensive investigations into the matter.
Wakati tumekuja kwa hiyo boma, tumeona hakuna kitu kimeimbiwa na inaonekana hao watu walikuwa wamekuja tu kuwaua.
According to eyewitness accounts, the gruesome execution could have been necessitated by an existing land conflict. Elsewhere, 4 suspected cattle thieves have been lynched in Kisii South Sub-County after they were allegedly caught in the act. The suspects had struck at 2 homesteads during curfew hours and drove away 3 cows before area residents gave chase and caught up with them.
Katika ile kijiji iko kijana mmoja walikuwa anashukia kama mwisi, waliweza kwenda kwake na kumwamsha na kumuonji na kumuuliza kama anajua habari ya hizo ng'ombe. Aliweza kukubali na akawaelekeza mpaka Ngucha ambapo ng'ombe 2 zilipatikana zikiuzwa kule Ngucha. Wale waliusiwa na huyu kijana waliweza kurudishwa pale Kiabusura na kuuawa na wananchi.
Meanwhile, the Security Committee in Narok County has handed over a report commission regarding deadly clan wars in Kararo area. The committee, led by Bishop Peter Nakola, said the issues surrounding leadership that were raised by the warring factions will end the long-standing dispute if their recommendations are adopted.
Hizo jamii mbili wamerudisha silaha kadhaa. Ingawa vile umesema pengine kuna wengine bado hawajalete, lakini wametii amri yako na wameendelea kurudisha. Na watu wanaendelea kuishi sasa kwa amani.
Elsewhere, Joshua Weganjo, the infamous fake police officer who hit the headlines a few years ago, is back for all the wrong reasons. It's alleged that Weganjo, who was under the influence of alcohol, drove past a police roadblock at Komarok Junction, almost injuring a police officer. For Channel 1 News, I'm Sarafina Robi.
And now matters business. The government will vet all maize importers and control imports not to flood the local market with cheap maize. Agriculture Chief Administrative Secretary Ann Nyaga said the government expects to import 2 million bags of the commodity to fill the shortfall in the market. Nyaga has further urged farmers to continue selling their maize directly to millers, adding that the country is well stocked for the rest of the year. According to data from the Ministry of Agriculture, as at the end of March this year, there were 19 million 90 kilogram bags of maize, while there is likely to be a surplus of 3.5 million bags by the end of June this year due to improved rainfall and the expected imports.
That also has the county war rooms that feed into the cumulative number of food stocks available. So when we talk about the food stock, we are not only taking a tally of maize, but we also have other staples, that is beans, we have cassava, we have fish, we name them to even rice and all these other commodities. We gazetted the approval for importation, and we said our food stocks between June and July, we have enough food stocks. So this food, as per our advice, was supposed, we are dealing with between now and May for the food stocks to have been able to come. As you know, the farmers should be able to start harvesting their food between any time from July onwards. So we are encouraging that this food comes at this particular time. And of course, if there is maybe other challenges along the way in terms of importation, they will be addressed. But we are encouraging that these foods come within the stipulated timelines.
Now, global rating agency Moody's has downgraded its rating for Kenya to negate from stable due to worsening fiscal position. This is key to make the cost of borrowing for Kenya expensive, as most lenders rely on the rating agency to determine the credit worthiness of a country. Moody's says the negative outlook reflects the rising financing risks posed by Kenya's large gross borrowing requirements.
According to the Moody's Investor Services, the combined impact of border closures and measures to contain the spread of coronavirus, as well as the supply chain disruptions, will weigh on almost all sectors of Kenya's economy. The UK-based rating agency says it expects Kenya's real GDP growth to slow to 1% in 2020 from 5.4% in 2019, while below the 5-year average of 5.6%. Lower growth combined with recently announced tax measures and increased spending will result in the government's fiscal deficit widening to 8.5% of GDP in the fiscal year 2019-2020 and 9.1% of GDP in the fiscal year 2020-21. The National Treasury says revenue collection is lagging behind by more than 500 billion shillings 1 month before the end of the fiscal year 2019-2020. Due to these fiscal shocks, Moody's has today changed the outlook on the government of Kenya's rating to negative from stable. Concurrently, the rating agency has affirmed Kenya's B2 issuer and senior unsecured ratings. Experts predict the shock to growth and larger fiscal deficit as a result of the coronavirus outbreak worsen Kenya's already high and increased debt and interest burdens. Weaker growth and larger fiscal deficits will further aggravate Kenya's already high debt and interest burden, since most lenders use the rating agencies to price borrowers. Regina Manyara-Gitar reporting for Channel 1 Business.
And now on a separate matter, a section of dairy farmers want the government to intervene and buy off excess milk in the market to cushion them from further losses. They argue that there has been suppressed demand for milk since the outbreak of COVID-19 as hotels and companies scale down their operation due to poor business.
2019 was a tough year for dairy farmers, with the weather oscillating between dry spells and heavy rains, and the processor milk prices dropping to as low as 20 shillings per litre. 2020 held promise. However, since Kenya reported its first case of coronavirus, life as well as business has not been as usual.
Sababu najua hii mambo ya COVID-19. Sasa vile kama mkulima tulikuwa tunategemea kuletewa chakula mingi hapa kwetu. Tunaona kuna shida juu kuna gari zingine tunategemea za kampuni fulani hazifiki. Feeds bei yake iko juu sana, kwa sababu hatujui kama ni mambo ya production ndio inafanya hivyo. Juu sasa tukienda kununua unakuta kama ya maize jam inakuja 50 kgs, unakuja ni 24. Sasa ukijaribu kufanya calculation na yenye maziwa yenye unauza, unapata mara mingi unajikuta uko na hasara kidogo.
Kenyans have had to prioritize their essential needs due to depressed funds caused by shelter in-house orders.
Wakati kama huu wa COVID, maziwa inapunguka bei juu hakuna watu wa kutumia hiyo maziwa.
Some households have reduced intake of milk, while others have sought alternatives, significantly denting demand for the commodity. This, coupled with increased foliage due to the wet weather conditions, has left dairy farmers with excess output and no market.
About a month ago, we were correcting 40,000 liters of milk per day, and today we are correcting about 55 to 60,000 liters per day. So what is going to happen? The scenario now will change. It's either we tell the farmers not to produce as much they could have produced, not to deliver as much they could have produced, because we don't have the capacity to buy and pay.
Farmers at Wakulima Dairy in Kuroine, sub-county Nyeri County, have unsold stock worth 50 million shillings accrued in a month. They now want the government to intervene and mop up the excess milk and cushion them from imminent losses, as well as increase funds to support the subsector.
So if we could get now the funding, but I wish there could be that funding, but at the same time, Kenya Dairy Board calls for a meeting so that that money can be distributed. How much you as Wakulima Daily are you going to deliver to KCC? How much you as Kinangop are you going to deliver to KCC? Otherwise, it might be one company to benefit, that is KCC, to mop up all the milk through their cooperative, the cooperative that delivers the milks to them.
Regina Manyara Guitar reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Now let's talk sport, where Yaya Toure is backing former Ivory Coast teammate Didier Drogba's bid to become president of the Ivorian Football Association. Now Drogba represented his country 105 times and announced his intention to run for the post back in September. However, due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, no date has been scheduled for the election. The former Ivory Coast captain faces competition from incumbent Sori Diabale and FIF Vice President Idriss Diallo. Despite support from Toure, not all players have backed Drogba's bid. The Union of Former Ivory Football Players have backed Diabate over Drogba. Now, Serie A side Sampdoria has reported 4 players from the Italian side have tested positive for the novel coronavirus, including 1 player for the second time. This comes as players from different sides underwent their first test ahead of a return to individual training. Meanwhile, Fiorentina said 3 players and 3 staff members also tested positive, while a day earlier Torino said 1 player had contracted the virus. On Thursday, the government said it was still examining medical guidelines of an Italian football federation, which are seen as the stumbling block to a resumption of the season. Juventus star Paulo Dybala and Atalanta goalkeeper Marco Spotiello have both recovered from the virus this week. Well, that brings us to the end of our bulletin this afternoon. Remember, practice social responsibility, maintain hygiene, observe the government's directive to curb the spread of coronavirus. Well, my name is Jackie Wambiru. Our sign language interpreter this afternoon was Byron Abuli. Enjoy your afternoon.